Why is it that when you decide, I'm going to change, I'm making a shift, I am choosing something else, this is going to be my new reality, why is it that when you go for that, it feels like there's gremlins or there's a pushback, and maybe even you start to create self-sabotage, maybe all your insecurities come up. Whatever that pushback is, it's there because your ego created this persona, and the ego will do everything it can to protect this persona. It doesn't want you changing and progressing, and that's why the ego is so involved when we go through a growth spurt, or we go through a milestone or a shift or a change of life, because the ego has invested in the creation and protection of an identity within you and without you, right? Internally, externally. And it's trying to uphold this personality you. So just be prepared that when you reach a point in your spiritual growth and in your practical life, even maybe you change jobs, maybe you end a relationship and you go into another one, whatever the change is, whatever reality that you are now selecting, notice how that quiet, dark voice starts to get louder and louder, because it's just doing its job. We can't expect the ego to shrink and disappear. We can, and I encourage you to negotiate with the ego, to self-soothe, to use positive self-talk, and to include the ego in that, because more than likely, as you move forward in your life toward the life you want and toward this new reality version of yourself, the ego will whisper, you're worthless, you don't belong here, you can't do this, you can't learn these new skills. The ego is very threatened by new, by change, by stepping outside, expansion into the lesser than comfortable comfort zone. It wants to keep you in the comfort zone because it's safe there. And the brain is a regurgitation principle. You know, it does receive, I mean, the chakra points. I wouldn't say the physical brain, but let's not get into semantics or, physical matter here. There is a receiving of higher force, higher consciousness. But to me, that's bigger than the brain. It's bigger than the body. It's the energy trumps everything for me. So that's just my perspective as a highly energetic, spiritual perspective being. Just be prepared that as you select better, bigger, expanded, more peaceful, more loving reality, whatever that looks like for you, if there is pushback, it's quite natural, it's quite normal. The ego will try to reel you back in to the old life, to keep you safe, to keep you connected to the version of you that it has invested in. Even though the soul, the body, the truthful consciousness is calling you to change, is calling you forward, saying, honey, you cannot stay here. It'll be like saying to a 2-year-old, don't become a 6-year-old, or a 6-year-old, don't become a teenager. We cannot stay. It's not natural to stay stuck. When we feel stuck, we are buying into an unnatural perspective, an unnatural reality, because the truth is energy is constantly changing, evolving and moving. So this pushback, and many of us felt it in the last few years, since 2020, since March 2020, this really kicked off. If you think back to March, April 2020, I'm sure there's something there that sparked a big revolution inside of you in your life, and possibly externally as well. And we had to examine all that pushback, and we had to look at what were we really afraid of becoming, because now we're in a space where we are becoming, we have become, or we are in this new phase of life. And the best way to temper that ego voice is to simply calm it down, be loving, be soothing, be encouraging. And when it says you can't do this, you've got to counterbalance that with, yes, I can. Yes, I can. I am that I am. You fill in the gap there. I am this thing that I am becoming, or that I have become. I embody this. I am this reality. I am that I am. And if you don't know what that reality is, you can use that very powerful sacred phrase, mantra, affirmation, I am that I am. That's enough, because I am is God. It's the higher consciousness, the true consciousness. So allow yourself to be I am, because it brings you into the present moment. And it's something that you can just say it randomly throughout your day. You're washing the dishes, you're chopping up the vegetables. I am that I am. It's very, very powerful. It's very grounding, and it actually has more power than we realize. Words truly are spellings. They're spells. That's why we call them spellings. So as you speak, you become, you know, as a man thinketh, so he is. Be aware of that. Don't freak out when you have the pushback, the self-sabotage, the ego raise its head out of the pulpit. But just be prepared for lots of self-compassion, gentleness, self-soothing, and positive reinforcement. You know, I work in addiction in the community, addiction services, and it's all about positive reinforcement. So when the addiction or the entity says you're no good, you're not worth anything, nothing positive can happen for you, or you're in a new university and you'll get the voice saying you don't belong here, like these people are better than you, or whatever it is, that's where you just gotta smile and see it like the inner brat, the little child that often the ego is. And, you know, pick up that little inner child and hold it. And those of you who've done inner child work with me, you'll remember this in your session. Hold that inner child and just love that shadow. It's just a shadow self. And what is a shadow? It's just the absence of the light, right? We've got a shadow there. You can see my shadow. It's just the absence of the light. So if I was to shine a bright light on that shadow that you can see on the wall there, it would disappear. Okay? And it's still me, the shadow. Well, it's an aspect of me. It's reflecting something to me. But if you're to buy into that shadow over buying into physical me here in front of you, you can see how that's what we do. We put a lot of investment and energy in this instead of in this. And that's just, you know, that's such a waste of focus. It's such a waste of life force. So be prepared that when you really make big moves into this new reality, that there probably will be a bit of a resurgence of your old identity. And it's only natural. The old identity is trying to keep itself alive, even though it's miserable, even though it's depressed, even though it's anxious. So it's, again, back to you being the co-creator to decide, well, I am this version of myself now. So you have to choose, you know, there's two wolves at the door. There's fear and there's love. It's all about which one you feed, you know. So if you want to be this happier, brighter, more aligned version of yourself in this aligned reality in university, in your new job, in your new marriage, whatever that is, you've got to feed that wolf of love. You've got to choose which wolf you're going to feed now, because you can't be both. You can't be the two people. And if you are, you're going to flip-flop. You're going to be miserable and you're going to stress yourself out. You're going to feel like you are being pulled in two different directions, and you've got a foot in two different personalities, and that is going to cause a conflict within you. And this is often what happens with celebrities. You know, they have a famous persona and then they have the shadow self, and that's what can cause all kinds of trouble, and we don't want that. So choose who you want to be, choose who you are, choose the I am, fill in whatever you want that to look like, to be, to become, and stick to the script. Stick to that pathway. You're feeding that wolf. What will happen to the other wolf when you don't feed? He'll go away. Energy needs energy to feed off. If you don't feed those negative thoughts, they will dissipate, they will dissolve and go away. Just to be aware of that. It's something that you'll see a lot when somebody tries to pull out of maybe something that wasn't working, and they're trying to start over. They'll often have what we call teething problems, you know, because it's just when we're trying to get something up and running, it can bring up a lot of fears and stuff. But it's important to remember how strong you are. You are in alignment. These are just teething problems. It'll smooth out eventually. You'll learn how to learn these new skills, and to keep focused on that outcome. Thank you. The light in me recognizes the light in you.